When you need an adult cartoon, and you need it soon, who you gonna call? Ralph Bashki! That's right. Hello, the Animator here, and welcome to the 5th episode of Cartoon Breakdown. I know, it's not much of a milestone, but it does mean that I've been doing this show for about a month, and I feel great about that. Before I get into the episode, I wanted to address something that needs to be talked about. If I followed my upload schedule, that would make this the first episode of October. This would mean that a change in scenery is needed. There we go. Halloween is one of my favorite times of year, and I'm going to be talking about shows that have a darker edge to them all this month. With that being said, let's get into today's episode. Television cartoons that target adults are something that, in today's world, are commonplace. With Adult Swim to the Fox lineup, Comedy Central, and FX, there's an oversaturation of adult cartoons. But that wasn't always the case. Here is Spicy City. Back in 1997, a cartoon show that targets adults was a thing unheard of. And yes, there were shows like The Flintstones and The Simpsons, but those shows could be watched by kids and be family friendly. Cartoons for adults have been around since the early days of animation, but only in standalone movies like Heavy Metal, Rock and Roll, and anything from Ralph Bashki. This changed as Matt Stone and Trey Parker were commissioned to create a Christmas short e-card that could be circulated on the web. They created Jesus vs. Santa, and it went from person to person and wound up on the computer of someone at Comedy Central, and the right people liked it and asked them to make a new show for adults. Matt and Trey decided to make the new show based on the kids from the short. That's for another episode. HBO got wind of what Comedy Central was doing and wanted to beat them to the finish line, so they sought out Ralph Bashki, who was more than happy to oblige. Bakshi got started on the show and hired his son and other writers that he was close with. Meeting in dive bars and taking notes over shots, Bakshi and his team came up with the idea for the show. Originally, it was going to be called Spicy Detective, and would have probably followed the lead character, a detective, and most likely they would have solved crimes and slept with a lot of people. The show was worked on till they got what it became, and it was renamed Spicy City. The show was an anthology series, with each episode being a standalone story, surrounded by a central setting, a futuristic bar, with the host being a woman named Raven, voiced by Michelle Phillips. On July 11th, 1997, HBO premiered the first episode, and the season would go until August 22nd of that year, with only 6 episodes. The show even managed to beat Matt Stone and Trey Parker's South Park to air by 1 month. And with that, Spicy City became the first cartoon show for adults to air. Considering how fast that Matt Stone and Trey Parker can produce an episode today, that's pretty surprising. The show was not the hit South Park was, but it was good enough to warrant a second season, and HBO asked Ralph Bashki to start on the second season, but with a catch. They wanted to hire all new writers and fire the old ones who Ralph Bashki had handpicked to make the show good. Bakshi didn't want to fire the writers that had made the show good, and would not back down. Eventually, Bakshi left the project, and with him, the show was cancelled. As of today, there's no way of watching the show, which is a shame as the show was ahead of its time and a good watch through. It dealt with things that could only be imagined at the time with the rise of technology and what makes us human, and it did it accurately. I don't think that there's much of a cult following for the HBO to release the show on DVD, or any other medium to view it. I would love to see the show come back, as it was interesting to see, and there is a market for it now. If you happen upon this video and wanted to know what it meant by Spicy City, I hope you liked what you saw, and maybe if you're still here, you could hit the subscribe button and get notified about my videos as they come out. I'm your host, the Animator, and this was Cartoon Breakdown. I went throughout the whole episode without mentioning Jim Cummings once. Well, I did just now.